Wilmington, for hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm one of the first year admission coordinators down at UNC Wilmington. Hopefully we don't have too many connection problems. It's actually pretty stormy down in Wilmington right now, so I hope my internet connection is okay. If there's any issues on my end in terms of connectivity, please feel free to flag either myself or one of the moderators down, and I'm happy to help. I'm happy to jump into things if Jackie and Dwayne, you're okay with that, or if there's any other introductions you need to do, please feel free to do so.
We just want to remind our participants that this is being recorded, so please keep yourself muted, and you will have access to this recording afterwards on our YouTube channel. And we can get started, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Of course. Happy to be here. So again, hi everyone. My name is Paul Williborza, first year admissions coordinator. So I work in the admissions office at UNC Wilmington. I actually recruit students from the northern part of North Carolina, including Durham. So I usually am up there many times a year, visiting schools in the Durham area, visiting schools in Chapel Hill and many other of the adjacent counties. Obviously right now, unfortunately, I can't be up there in person, but I hope today I can answer any of the questions for students who may either be finalizing their part of the college experience if we have any seniors, but I think hopefully many of the students today might be juniors that are gearing up for the application season next year. And I hope I can give you a little bit of an insight onto what our application process looks like, maybe some of the differences between us and some of the other schools in the state and outside of the state that you may be applying to, and then answer any general questions about the school as well. I am an alumni of UNCW. I graduated in 2016. I'm currently pursuing my master's as well, so I absolutely bleed teal. I love this university, and hopefully I can showcase a little bit of that today during my presentation. So I'm going to jump into my slides here, and like I say, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or we can always answer them at the end as well. So for those that are not familiar with UNC Wilmington, we are a part of the UNC system here in North Carolina. So we are one of the 17 universities here in North Carolina, part of that system. And of those 17, we consider ourselves to be one of actually the more smaller sized public institutions in that system, but also one of the more academically competitive. We have increased in rankings in the past few years to be really one of the top 3 or 4 schools in the state when it comes to flagship public institutions. And you can see some of our rankings on the top slide here. We rank very high in terms of US News and World Report with public national universities, and also some of our specific online programs as well. So if by chance you're looking for some of our specific remote learning institutions, I'm happy to share some additional resources with you after today. But today I'll be focusing a little bit more on the traditional freshman student that will be spending 4 years on our campus. UNC Wilmington, as of our last year, in terms of our common data set, we were close to just under one student under 17,500. We were really pushing for that one additional student, but we currently sit at the mid-sized university at around 17,500 students, with primarily majority of those students being undergraduates. So we have around 15,000 of those students who are undergraduate students. What we use, our catchphrase here is not too big, not too small. We think this size is really perfect when it comes to a great academic and social experience in college. 15,000 undergraduates means that you will know many of your friends and see many of your friends as you walk around campus, and it won't feel too overwhelming. It won't feel like a huge university, but it's also small enough that you'll be able to, big enough that you'll also be able to access many of the resources that bigger universities have access to. So that may be in terms of research, that may be in terms of potential internships. So there's lots of great opportunities that come with a mid-sized university that we get a little of the best of both worlds. For what we say. We do have a small graduate cohort. This is growing. In the past several years, we've seen great growth with our graduate cohort, but majority of our focus, like I say, is with our undergraduate programs and our undergraduate students. So majority of our staff on our campus are catering to those specific students, and you'll have access to those specific programs throughout your 4 years here as a Seahawk. Average class size is around 22 students. Student to faculty ratio is 18:1. Again, these are perks of us being around that 17,000 size. You will be able to know your faculty. Faculty will be able to know you, and you'll be able to benefit from those relationships as well. Okay, so that's just a brief overshot, big picture scope of what UNCW looks like, and I'll get into a little bit more of the specifics here in a few slides. So a little bit more about the actual programs themselves. At UNC Wilmington, we have nearly 60 bachelor degrees that students can choose from. And if you would have asked us around, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago, what UNCW was known for, there was probably only a few solid answers, and that was probably film studies, marine biology, and maybe 1 or 2 additional programs. But within the past 10 years, we've really become a really well-rounded university. And now we have great strengths in a wide variety of areas across your academic focuses. So our focus in STEM still remains a top priority on our campus. We have excellent programs with marine biology still, pre-med biology, chemistry, biochemistry. We also have had a huge increase in health sciences, specifically nursing. Our nursing program ranks as one of the top programs in the state, as well as social and health sciences. So things like exercise science, psychology, as well as clinical research. Beyond the science realm there, we have great programs in our arts. We have a strong digital arts program that has really taken off recently in the past few years. Film studies still maintains a very strong footprint on our campus. And then every other art you may think of. We have music programs, we have, as I mentioned, digital art and traditional art programs. So there's great possibility there. The last program that I really like to note on as well is our business school. And our business program is one of our top programs on our campus. We actually have close to 15 or so different concentrations that students will go into within our business school, but you'll also be able to build a strong foundation in business as well. So like I mentioned, some of our more popular ones are on the screen here, but for a full list, you can check out our website, and we have more and more new programs that are added every single year. So it's a great spot to jump into any type of academic major at UNCW. Great. So actually, I'm going to transition now into a little bit about the application process. Hopefully, we have some juniors in the room that are getting ready, hopefully, to prepare an application next fall. And I'd like to go over the bulk of our admission criteria here for those students that are beginning to think about how to showcase their strengths on an application. As a UNC school, we do have certain requirements that all UNC schools must adhere to. These are what we call our minimum course requirements, and majority of them come through your actual classes that you've completed throughout your 4 years. We have a slide of these on our website, but majority of them will likely mirror your high school graduation requirements. We look for students that have taken 4 units of English, 4 units of math, 3 of the sciences, 2 of the social sciences, and 2 of foreign language, okay? But once you've met that minimum course requirements, we move on to our bulk of our admission criteria, and that's what's listed here on the screen. Now, for many of you, you may be familiar that a lot of colleges will use these academic and non-academic elements to review you, but each college will be different, and that holds true within the UNC system as well. While the UNC umbrella has their minimum requirements for all schools, each school has competitive ranges that they look for. Okay, and many of our ranges are here listed on the screen. I'd like to just take a few minutes to walk through each of these items here and make sure everyone understands our competitive criteria at UNCW. So when a student applies at the fall of their senior year, or the spring technically of their senior year as well, we look at the transcript first. And the transcript, of course, will be evaluating that you meet the minimum course requirement, but then we'll be evaluating some of the items in the first bullet point there. We'll be evaluating your grades throughout your 4 years. We'll be evaluating your weighted GPA, as well as a class rank if your high school ranks you amongst your colleagues. Now, for last year's middle 50th percentile average, we saw our average admitted senior have a weighted GPA of a 3.9 to a 4.4. Okay, so 50% of our accepted seniors had a GPA within that range, 25% were above those ranges, and 25% were below. But beyond that weighted GPA, that is not the only thing that we're going to be looking at when it comes to your transcript. We want to see students that are taking lots of rigorous courses and challenging themselves, whether that be with honors classes, dual enrolled classes at a local community college, AP classes, whatever that may look like at your high school. We'd rather see a student at the lower ends of our GPA ranges, but has challenged his or herself throughout their 4 years, as opposed to a student who might have great grades, a 4.0 even, but hasn't really challenged themselves, okay? So if there's any juniors in the room and you have a little bit of time to manipulate your senior schedule, keep in mind, not only at UNCW, but virtually any college that you apply to, they're always going to prefer that you maximize the amount of rigor that you can do and that you can succeed in as well. Don't feel like you need to take 8 AP classes if you know you're not going to do well in those 8 AP classes. But if you feel up to this point that you've done well in your couple honors classes and you might want to try an AP class or try a dual enrolled class, I would encourage you to do so. Of course, talk with your academic counselors and some of the resources that you have here at the EK Center, but you have plenty of opportunities to increase that rigor and curriculum as you go through your 4 years of high school as well. My second bullet point there, I talk about rigorous curriculum, but I also talk about increasing strength. You may, as a student, have friends that had graduated last year, or maybe even a brother or sister that had the infamous senioritis. And that is a plague that we don't like to see in the admissions office at any university. We prefer students continue to increase their strength and take challenging courses throughout their spring semester of their senior year, okay? Many students, as they become a senior, may not have many classes left that they are required to take, but we still want to see you maximizing your strength and maximizing the amount of courses you're taking in that last semester of college, okay? Many students nowadays are taking advantage of, early dismissal or late arrival and then taking some classes at a local community college. In the Durham area, you have some access to some great institutions there. That's something that if you wanted to speak with your academic counselor about, they would more than be happy to share some of those resources. And those credits sometimes will be able to transfer into an institution. So you're actually helping and expediting the amount of credit that you could earn towards your 4-year degree. So keep that in mind as a possibility. If you think that you're going to be kind of maxing out at your high school with the classes they offer, maybe look at an online institution or a community college institution for ways to increase that strength of schedule as well. Okay. So that's just a little snapshot of the admission criteria. A brief note as well, we do not compare students from different schools when it comes to our admission cycle. So maybe your school right now doesn't use a 4.0 scale and they use a 100-point scale. Or perhaps maybe it's on a completely different scale and you're not using weighted GPAs whatsoever. That's okay. We review you within the confines of your high school. So if you are being weighted in one certain scale at your high school, we will not take that GPA and compare you to a student who has a 6.0 scale at another school. All right, so always keep in mind that you want to do the best in your program and try not to compare yourself to other students at other universities or at other high schools per se, okay? My next section there is on standardized tests, okay? And so while the transcript provides our first primary academic insight into your application, the standardized test will be the second part. We do require a standardized test as part of our application process. However, we only need either the SAT or the ACT. We do not have a preference between the tests. You can take whichever one that you may like, but we do need to have at least one formal score report sent to us in order to review your application, okay? We super score these exams. So if you've taken the SAT or ACT multiple times, you can actually automatically have either College Board or ACT send those scores to us and it'll automatically give you the highest score possible. All right. So if you've taken those tests and maybe gotten the higher score in the math section the first time and then the English section the second time, we'll use those individual scores from either test and combine them to make your highest score possible. All right, we will never hold lowest scores against you, so there's no need to not send us a test or score if you don't feel comfortable. I'd always recommend sending all test scores and we can see your progression throughout your 4 years of academic testing potentially, all right? Many students are worried that the standardized test score will preclude them from being competitive for admission. And again, on the screen here, I have our middle 50th percentiles from last year's. Many students see these numbers and they say, right now, my scores are not in these ranges. They may not even be close to those ranges. And that's okay. UNCW uses a holistic review process. So the standardized test section, while important, only comprises one part of that academic element. So maybe let's say you've taken the ACT and you currently have a 21 or a 20. But the rest of your application is really, really strong. You have a great GPA, you have really great essays, you have really good involvement throughout your 4 years. This is what we're gonna be looking for, all right? And we always evaluate students as students, not numbers. And so your standardized test score should not be a reason why you don't apply or you feel that you won't be competitive at UNC Wilmington. It is an important element of our academic review, but not the only academic element. All right, so just keep that in mind. And if you ever have questions about the standardized test score, please feel free to reach out to our office and we're happy to help, okay? When it comes to the SAT and the ACT, we do not require the essay or the writing portion of either of those exams. So you can sign up for those and register for those exams without the writing element. We'll be evaluating your writing skill in our next section, which is our essay and short answer, all right? Now, these are 2 essays that you'll complete with the application. And they are relatively similar every single year. So my #1 piece of advice this summer, if you are sitting at home and don't have much to do over the summer, you can start working on these essays even before the applications are even released. all right? The long essay, that first essay there, is 750 words, and we use the same exact prompts that are found on the Common application, all right? The Common App, if not already, I haven't checked yet, they may have already released these prompts for the fall 2020, fall 21 year, all right? And they're relatively general. Tell us about yourself. Tell us how you've grown throughout high school. What are some, hardships you may have endured? And we expect you to use that essay at multiple universities, all right? The short answer is actually 250 words, and that question is only pertinent at UNCW. We ask that on the supplemental part of our application, and we ask, why do you want to come to UNCW? Why are you choosing this university over potentially another university? All right. Now, we have many applications that come in every year. I'm about to show you a number of our raw application number. This past year, I probably read close to 2,000 of those essays. And so I have two quick pieces of advice here. Proofread and personalize. Unfortunately, I probably read around 30 essays a year of students. When we ask them, why do they want to come to UNCW? They actually write about a different university. They write about wanting to go to another university as opposed to UNC Wilmington. And while we understand that you all are likely applying to multiple schools, we want to hear why you want to choose us, okay? Many of us, including myself, like I mentioned, are alumni of UNCW. And so this gives us an idea of how you may fit into our community. And it's very, very important that you are writing about the right school. It leaves a sour taste in our mouth if you're writing about somebody else, okay? My second recommendation there to personalize it is really ambiguous, and it can be up to you how you do that. But when we ask you, why do you want to come to UNCW, we hope that there's a specific reason why you're applying to us and you're not just applying to apply. Maybe you've heard of a specific program, you've done some research about our film studies program, and you've seen where our alumni have ended up in LA and New York, and that really interests you. That's a great start to an essay. Or maybe you've had a family member that attend and they had a great experience and you want to have something similar. Another great answer. So there's little ways, whether you do some research or you have a personal connection to Wilmington or UNCW that you'd like to talk about, there's lots of great ways to start that essay to show that you're interested in becoming a part of our community and how you'd like to contribute and grow throughout your 4 years at UNCW as well. So my number one piece of advice, if nothing you take away from my presentation today, nothing else, take away that these essays can be really great leaping off points for your application. And it's never too early to start working on those applications, even in the next coming weeks. If you'd like to start drafting, what would I like to talk about in my college essays? It's a great time to start that as well. My last two items on here are a little bit more self-explanatory. We want to hear about your extracurricular activities as well. I put quality over quantity there. We much rather see students who have stuck with a few specific hobbies or a few specific interests throughout their 4 years versus students that get to their junior or senior year and add a ton of random, for lack of a better word, extracurricular activities because of a lack of interest, they feel like it's going to add merit to their application, okay? We'd much rather see a student that's committed to a few specific things that they're passionate about and has continued with leadership roles potentially in those organizations as well. Musical activities, athletics, part-time responsibilities with your family. Those are all really, really important extracurricular activities. So don't feel like it only has to associate with your high school. It can be anything that you're doing in the community, anything that you're doing with your family. We want to hear about what you are outside of a student, all right? And this will, again, will help us see how you might fit in with our Seahawk community on campus as well. And finally, an optional letter of recommendation. All right, so this is not required, but if you have a counselor or an academic teacher that you've worked with throughout your 4 years in high school that can really speak to your abilities as a student, we'd love to hear from that person. And like I say, they can be a great kind of reference point into some of your character traits, whether that's in the classroom or outside the classroom as well. Okay, so these items I call the big five, and they're some of our items and many of our items that we use with our preliminary application review. We have additional ones that we'll consider as well, but keep in mind each of these sections you can kind of build holistically into an application. And like I say, we're not looking at specific numbers and making a snap judgment at UNCW. Rather, we're going to see all of these puzzle pieces come together and then make a decision based on the fit of you at our college. And I know this is a lot of information. I think a few questions came in there, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end. I'm going to keep moving unless there's anything important that Jackie or Dwayne see, but please let me know if you have questions at the end about these admission criteria here. All right, so a little bit about our deadlines. Upcoming in the fall, we'll have two main deadlines for UNC Wilmington. The first is our early action deadline, which will take place in November 1. So typically for the upcoming application year, our fall application will open in late August, early September. All right, so you can plan that if you want to put something in your calendar. By September 1st, the application for next year should be open for UNC Wilmington. All right, and students have from September through November 1st to apply early action. Now, early action is our first deadline. It is non-binding, meaning that if you apply and are admitted to UNC Wilmington, you are not automatically committed to attending this university. You could still choose somewhere else, all right? Students that apply November 1st will receive their decision typically late December, early January, all right? And so by mid-January or so, you'll have that decision from us and you'll be able to take from that time through the rest of the spring to make that decision. Now, we do have a second deadline, our regular decision deadline, that actually lets students apply all the way through February 1st. And the main difference here is really simply the time. We do see majority of our students apply in early action. However, there are some specific situations where we may recommend a student wait till February and apply then. This would be a student that, let's say, the end of their junior year might have been a little rocky in terms of grades, or potentially they've only taken the ACT once and they feel they can do a lot better before applying again. You always want your first application to be the best. The first view of us, reviewing your application to be the best. And if by waiting a few months, you can raise that GPA up with a few more classes, or you can take the SAT or ACT one more time, we do see some students wait till February to apply at that point in time. However, for many students that are looking for an early edge and an early jump start on deciding and potentially next steps like financial aid, scholarships, and our housing process, we would encourage you to apply early action. And again, this is one that really varies from student to student. So if you do have questions about saying, well, this is my kind of background, here's where I'm thinking I may apply, what's your recommendation? You can contact our office and I'd be happy to give you some advice on which path I think you should take. Whenever you do end up applying, we have 3 different ways you can do so. We accept majority of our applications, through the common application. If you're not familiar with that, that's just a universal application portal that allows you to apply to multiple schools with one single application. It's very, very useful and saves the student a lot of time without having to fill out the monotonous information over and over again. So if you're not familiar with Common App, I would encourage you to make that account sooner rather than later and explore the different universities that use that may be on your list. We also accept applications through CFNC. Many students, in North Carolina here are familiar with the College Foundation application portal. We do not participate, unfortunately, in the free application week, but we do accept fee waivers. And many students that apply through any of our 3 portals can submit a fee waiver, and that way your application fee will be waived. Finally, our last portal is not actually have a logo here, but on the right-hand side, there is an account for C-Level. And C-Level is our personal UNCW portal. And if you go there, you can not only today sign up to be on our mailing list, and we'll send you emails when our application opens and such, but you can also eventually apply directly through C-Level. Now that application only comes to us. So if you'd like to apply to other schools in North Carolina, you'll need to, apply through other portals, but C-Level, if UNCW is your #1 choice, you can of course apply directly to us through C-Level as well. Okay. And just to give everyone a little bit of perspective here, last year for the fall 2019 class, we had 14,000 applications, all right? So 14,000 students actually applied to UNCW. On average, our acceptance rate is around 64%. So 64% of those 14,000 were admitted. We'll say on average, that's around 8,000 students or so. And of those 8,000 admitted students, we actually had 2,343 students choose UNCW for the fall semester. So you can see that's a big jump going from 14,000 students to 2,300 students. And we'd love to take more students than that. We are a growing university. We've seen our incoming classes really trend upwards the past few years. However, our main kind of limiting factor right now is our residence halls. And to compensate that, we're in the process of building 4 new residence halls on our campus, 2 of which will be opening this fall for the very first time. The next 2 will be opening next fall. So we intend to increase this even a little bit further. Ideally, we'd like to be around 2,500 students for next fall as well. But that is our goal right now for our incoming classes. We do ask around 150 to 200 students to join us in the spring semester. And many public institutions across the state and across the country will offer this delayed acceptance program. And for these spring students, they're typically just a little bit less academically competitive than our fall students. They might have a slightly lower GPA or a slightly lower standardized test score, but we still see the potential in them becoming excellent Seahawk representatives. And so we ask them to join us in the spring semester. In the fall semester, they can actually take classes at a local community college, furthering the credit that they can bring into the university. They can work part-time to save up for tuition, or they can also study abroad through UNCW programs. All right, so there's plenty of opportunities for these spring students to take advantage of opportunities in the fall, and we'd be happy to help link you with those resources as well. But just to give you an idea of what we call our admissions funnel looks like at UNCW, to give you an idea, hopefully these numbers frame that a little bit better for you all. All right, so that's a little bit about the application process, and I just have a few more slides to talk a little bit about campus culture and what it means to be a Seahawk. And then I know I see a lot of questions coming in, which is excellent, so I'm happy to answer those. But in the meantime, outside of your academics, there is so much more to UNCW that I'd love to spend a second here talking about. You know, while your academics will hopefully be your focus of choosing a university and a very, very important element of why you may choose one university over the other, you also want to make sure that the community and the atmosphere at that college is right for you as well. All right. And at UNCW, there's so much and so many different things that are available for students to do. We just like to highlight a few of them here on my slides. We have wonderful learning communities that students can join their freshman year. These learning communities are pockets of students with similar interests that live together their freshman year. So let's say you have an interest of, you know, with Wilmington, we're obviously near the coast. We have lots of students that are interested in being outdoors and some of our water sports. We actually have a Seahawk recreation learning community. And typically there's around 30 students that live in the same residence hall their freshman year, and they're able to take classes together, and then they do a specific outside activity, usually a few times a semester, whether that's kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, surf clinics, whatever it may be, to kind of bond them together as a community. All right. That's one example of a more recreational focused one. We have ones for specific majors like marine biology, business, nursing. We have ones that are focused on student engagement and leadership in our community. So they go out and volunteer at local areas in Wilmington. There are so many to be a part of. And what's really fantastic about these learning communities is that you come in and you instantly have this kind of bond, like I say, with 29, 30 other students. I came to UNC Wilmington from Maryland, actually, and I had no idea. No one I knew came down here from my high school. And I joined one of these learning communities. I instantly felt by week 1, week 2 on campus that I had 30 really, really close friends. All right, so that's an excellent opportunity for anyone that's thinking about really jumpstarting their college career. Check out our learning communities, and we have lots of different options for you to choose from. Athletics is a big thing as well. Oftentimes I hear students kind of joking about UNC Wilmington because we don't have a football team. And while that is true, we have lots of other athletics that I think fill that gap very nicely. We have a very competitive men's basketball and women's basketball divisional team. All of our divisional sports here are located in the center of the slide. So those are, of course, available for students to go and attend these games. We're very well attended at many of our major sport events here. We also have tons of sport clubs at the top right. And these are not only club sports that are a little bit more organized and will actually travel to actual tournaments, but we also have intramural sports. So if you just want to play soccer casually or play ultimate frisbee casually, we have lots of those opportunities on our campus as well. Outside of athletics, we have all of your traditional organizations. We have, nearly 350 student organizations ranging from faith-based, Greek life, student volunteer, academic, and many, many more that you can volunteer and join. It's so easy to get involved at UNCW as well. We have involvement carnivals every single semester, and there's plenty of opportunities to kind of get involved in that aspect. Finally, my last thing on the slide here is our study abroad element. So we have a huge study abroad program here at UNCW. Last year, out of all master's serving institutions in the United States, we were ranked 4th for our study abroad programs. All right, so we have a huge amount of programs ranging from 1 week over spring break to 2 years through our business school. You have areas all across the globe. Many of students choose Australia, Western Europe, Latin America, and South America. plenty of opportunities to kind of get all of your different interests and expertise from these different areas of the world. And we encourage our students not only to be, great citizens on our campus, but to be global citizens and, bringing their culture back to the United States and bringing our culture outwards to other countries as well. So that's a very important element of our campus community as well. All right, and my next slide here, there we go. I just wanted to spend a couple quick seconds. I know, unfortunately, right now, many students are unable to get to campus. And while we'd love to have you on campus to see the real thing, I wanted to share a few of my favorite slides, just real briefly about some of UNCW's specific traditions. If you attend many of the amazing sessions that the Emily K Center has organized through these webinars, many schools will likely talk about their campus culture and their campus community, and they'll talk about how special it is and how no other campus can really rival that. And as opposed to saying that same thing and probably going in one ear and out the other, I wanted to just show some of the things that we put on for our students that I think make us really, really, truly special. Some of our photos here, the top left, many of these take place, actually all three of those photos will take place within your first 2 weeks on campus. So the top left photo is move in. That is a freshman's car that is pulled up to move into their residence hall. Everyone in a teal shirt is an upperclassman or returning student, and they help all of our freshmen move into campus. So as opposed to an ordeal where you're stressed out and moving into a new area, moving into a new residence hall, you may feel a lot of anxiety with that move. We try to make that as seamless as possible by bringing all of your bags and all of your things in for you, and you can spend much less time setting up and much more time getting ingratiated with our community. All right, so there's plenty of opportunities there to meet people on move-in day, your very first day on campus, and I think it's just a wonderful, warm welcome to all of our incoming students on our campus as well. I wouldn't be a true UNCW alumni if I didn't sell our location a little bit. We are located right on Wrightsville Beach. Our center top photo there is Wrightsville Beach. And part of our welcome orientation week at UNCW is an event called Beach Blast. And it's probably our favorite event for most students. We reserve a few beach accesses on Wrightsville Beach, and these are actually all UNCW students. And you can come out there. It's a great way. We do this in August when the weather is still really warm, and it's a great welcome back to the semester and a great start. You'll have games and campus organizations out there hosting specific events, and it's just a wonderful way to kickstart the fall semester with students returning back to Wilmington. Once we get back onto campus, the top right photo is a little bit of our involvement carnival that I mentioned. All 300 or so of our organizations will be layered out here the first couple of weeks of classes, and you'll be able to walk through these tents and register for 10 to 15 to 20 clubs. Everything from, we have a Quidditch team, we have, athletics, as I mentioned, Greek life, student orgs. Many of our local employers on and off campus will recruit for jobs here. So it's just a wonderful atmosphere to get involved and to find plenty of things to get, jumpstarting again your college career in terms of an extracurricular perspective. And finally, just on the bottom are some of my other favorite events. We do a Dub Idol event on the bottom left, similar to American Idol. There's lots of great events, not only musically and culturally on our campus, but all of these events are run by students. So maybe if you're not interested in actually singing, but you have an interest in the production side of things or emceeing or marketing for an event, many, if not majority of our events are done completely by our student body. And so there's a wonderful way to build your resume and build your experience of planning and organizing events that's going to be attractive for any full-time career or employer that you may go into. And some of my other photos down here are welcome photo. This is convocation in the bottom center, where you take your first photo on our Hoggard lawn. And finally, my favorite on the far right bottom side is our WAGS Giving event. This is our Thanksgiving kind of event right before fall break, and students on one of our main dining hall called Wagner Hall will come in for WAGS Giving, and we have tons of food, turkey, pie, all of the great fixings that everyone loves come November. We have that on our campus, and it's a great way to just bond and be with your faculty right before fall break. And so hopefully this gives you an insight. This, of course, is not everything, only a brief snapshot, but an idea of how passionate our staff and faculty are and how they engage in a wonderful community with our students, and some of the things that you can have to look forward to as part of the UNCW community. I think this is my second to last slide. Just a little quick shout out to Wilmington and our surrounding area here. If you've never been down to the Wilmington area, we have a gorgeous location as well. I really think it's an ideal spot for a young adult to start their, their adult career. Wilmington, the UNCW campus is located in really the core center of Wilmington. We are 10 minutes from Wrightsville Beach on the left there, and 10 minutes from our Riverwalk downtown. So you have both the elements of the beach atmosphere and the downtown atmosphere, and anything that would come with that, concert venues, restaurants, ghost tours, we have it all. And so it's a really perfect environment for students that are looking for either the academic and the professional development with maybe potential companies in downtown Wilmington, or more of the recreational aspect, let's say at Wrightsville Beach, relaxing and surfing. You have it all there, and it's just a wonderful community to be a part of. If you do plan to visit Wilmington in the coming year before you make a college decision, make sure to devote some time to explore your area. And that should go with any college as well. Keep in mind, while majority of your time may be spent on any college campus, you also want to make sure that the campus community is very, very structured and supporting of those students as well. And for UNCW, like I say, I have a former student here. I couldn't talk more of how supportive our community is and how wonderful it is to be part of the Wilmington population here in the area. And I think that's it. I put a question slide here and my contact information, but I think we had a lot of questions come in. So I'll open it up to, I don't know if Jackie or Dwayne want to kind of ask those questions themselves, or I'm happy to read chat, but I'll open it up for any questions that people may have and anything I can reiterate to make maybe a little bit more sense.
Okay, so participants can continue to add their questions in the chat, and I'll just read the questions for you, Paul, as they appeared.
Perfect.
So is there a language requirement to graduate from UNCW? If students take only 2 years of language in high school, will they need more at college to graduate? If student takes more, does that help?
Great question. Great question. So at UNC Wilmington, in order to graduate with your undergraduate degree, there is a language requirement. Now, it depends. It's a little bit more complicated. Typically, let's say if you've taken Spanish in high school and you've taken maybe 2 years of Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 at your high school. Typically how that process works is that you come into UNCW and take a placement exam at your freshman year. And that placement exam would either place you at an upper level Spanish or maybe an introductory level Spanish. Now, for most students, you need 2 additional foreign language credits unless you place at a higher level. So if you've taken, let's say, 2 or 3 levels of Spanish in high school and you feel like you're relatively fluent, you could place at a higher level and you may just need 1 class. But usually the minimum requirement at UNCW is 1 to 2 classes, and you either have the option of continuing that same language that you took in high school, whether that be Spanish, Russian, American Sign Language, or you can choose to start a whole new Spanish or a whole new language requirement. And for that, if you're choosing a new language, you will need to take those 2 full credits there. So the probable answer is 1 to 2. That can change depending on your fluency level and the amount of classes you've taken in high school.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Liz is, will anything change with COVID-19 for UNCW? And then I suspect Liz is asking about policies around admissions. Yeah,
great question. The short answer is yes, most definitely. My longer answer is that I don't quite know yet. For many of my juniors that may be thinking about how are we going to evaluate, let's say, my junior year grades, my spring semester grades from this semester that they're currently in. We're still going to develop that. But of course, we're going to be, accompanying those students that may have experienced, strenuous circumstances. We know that no one was planning on this and no one was expecting this. So we're going to do our best to accommodate any of those accommodations that students may need. And like I said, we don't know exactly how that'll look yet. We may be, editing what our requirements may look like in terms of classes, but typically what we'll do is handle that on a case-by-case scenario. So if students do feel like they are unable to meet our minimum requirements or unable, let's say, to take the SAT due to the COVID scenario, which we dealt with many seniors this semester, please email our office. You can either email me directly or email our main admissions office, and we'd be happy to work with you one-on-one. Just at this current time, we haven't exactly established how that's going to impact applications for next year, but we will certainly be emailing you. The best thing to do is stay in touch with our office and stay in touch with our website. We have all of our updates on our website that you can look through, and we'll be sending additional updates for any student that has joined our mailing list on what our requirements may look like and if anything has changed for the fall 2020 semester.
Thank you, Paul. Another question here, this one is from DS. Can you talk about any merit scholarships that at UNCW? Are there any full ride scholarships?
Great question. Great question. So merit scholarships are very complex at UNCW. We do not typically offer any full ride scholarships. And I will say, out of all of our UNC sister schools, we are one of the youngest in the system and also one of the smaller ones, like I mentioned. And so our alumni base, first and foremost, is not as developed as, let's say, a Chapel Hill or an NC State. And our state funding that we receive from the state is also not as high as some of our other sister schools. And so what that means is that, unfortunately, that really hits our merit scholarship awarding base. Typically, schools that have more state funding and more of an alumni chapter are going to have more funds to fund towards scholarships. Our main merit scholarship that we offer is what we call our Distinguished Merit Scholarship. And that is a $5,000 scholarship that is awardable for your 4 academic years in college, okay? Now, every single student that applies to UNC Wilmington is reviewed for this scholarship automatically. There is no additional application process that you need. But that being said, it is very, very competitive. If you recall, we had 14,000 applications last year, and we are awarding typically only a few hundred of those distinguished merit scholarships. And so it is very, very competitive. We're typically looking for students that have a very high GPA, and it oftentimes comes down to their standardized test scores as well. So students that have usually around above I want to say a 1350 was our average for this year on the SAT, and above a 30 or so on the ACT. Those numbers, of course, change every year and they fluctuate, but that is our main academic merit scholarship that is offered through the Office of Admissions. Now, if a student is admitted to the university, they are accepted into the university, regardless if they receive that scholarship or not, they then have the opportunity to apply for our general university scholarship. And we have close to around, I'd say, 50 to 60 freshman scholarships that are available for students to apply for. Again, that is not as many as probably people would like and we would like as a university. Unfortunately, that's just where our funding is at. Majority of our merit scholarships are catering toward our upperclassmen that are involved with upper level research or an internship on our campus. But that scholarship application is open every single year, and students can apply for those scholarships every single spring. What I'd recommend students do if you are interested in learning more about that scholarship process, which I hope many students are, our scholarship page on our main website is uncw.edu/finaid, FINAID, and all of that information in terms of our general scholarship and our merit scholarships are listed there. You can find information about the criteria for each of those scholarships, as well as what that process looks like.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And with decision day coming up shortly, we know there's a difference between the admitted students and the enrolled students.
Right.
Are there any differences with regard to the averages for test scores or GPA between the admitted students and the enrolled students?
Good question. Yeah, we typically don't run those numbers until we have our final fall class. So on average, it's just hard to kind of evaluate, especially right now with everything in flux. We don't necessarily release those numbers or have them even available right now until we see those numbers, but it ranges. You know, I would say on average, they stay relatively close within those specific ranges that I mentioned a few slides ago. Typically, like I say, we have our middle 50%, and the average of our class still falls within those percentages there. When it comes to our decision date, we also understand that many students are, might have a little bit of anxiety, especially right now, given the corona epidemic. We have actually extended our decision date until June 1st. So that was released actually earlier this week. So if students do need that extra time to make a decision as the situation develops, and that can of course impact a college decision process, please take that time that you need. Again, our office is open and you can contact us, and if you have any questions or would like to talk through with somebody, we'd be more than happy to do that. But we've extended that to June 1st, and so students can take those extra few weeks to make that decision if they need. If you are curious about what the differences in the enrolled numbers are, you can look at our past year's data for what we have that data on our website. But like I say, off the top of my head, most of that information and most of those ranges when it comes to GPA and standardized test scores are still relatively within what we admit as well.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Monica is asking, is housing guaranteed for all 4 years of study?
Great question. Housing is not guaranteed for all 4 years. However, it is guaranteed your freshman year. So all students are required to live on campus if they are an incoming freshman for the fall semester. So any student outside of Wilmington actually is required to live on campus. Following your freshman year, you are allowed to stay on campus, but it is not required and is not guaranteed. Like I mentioned, our housing is really our main limiting factor. We are building some advanced upperclassmen housing as well, but it's relatively popular to stay on campus. I'd say probably close to half our students stay on campus all 4 years. And so it is very popular to live on campus. I'd say on average, though, we have around 90% that are within a 3-mile radius. And so we have lots of off-campus apartments that are not technically on the UNCW property, but are still very easy to get to campus too, whether that's walking, biking, or using our public transportation system that will take you to these off-campus apartments.
Thanks, Paul. You answered Natalia's question in that response. Her question was, are first-year students required to stay on campus? But you did say if you're outside of Wilmington. Would you clarify for those students who live in Wilmington?
Sure. So for any local students, if you live within the local 3 counties, New Hanover, Pender, or Onslow County, New Hanover, Pender, or Brunswick County, you are not required to live on campus. So any students living in those 3 counties, presumably with their parents or on their own, they can waive the on-campus housing requirement. But anyone, let's say, coming from the Durham area or anywhere across the state, anywhere across the country outside of those counties are going to be required to live on campus. Those appeals are done through our housing office. So if you were to apply to UNCW, be admitted, and then enroll, typically in the summer prior to your start date. So for many of our juniors, this would be next year around this time, you would be applying for housing, and you could either apply for a specific building. Let's say, you're going to live on campus, you'd like to live in Belk Hall or Galloway Hall, you'd list those preferences. Or if you're a local student and want to waive that on-campus housing, you would submit a waiver and just say you are not interested in the on-campus housing.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Natalia, and thanks, Paul. Liz is asking, do you have study abroad in Ireland?
Ireland. Presumably, yes. I don't know of all the specific programs off the top of my head, but we do a pretty exhaustive where nearly every single country is covered. We have all of that listed on our website. We actually have a map on our study abroad website. So if you Google UNCW study abroad, we have a map there that lists all of our partnered universities and all of our partner programs. And so you can find any specific part of the world that you're interested in going to. You can find the institution that we partner with and the types of programs and classes they may offer there as well. We have done many partnerships with Ireland in the past, as well as the general area there as well. So feel free to explore that map. And if there's a specific part of the country you're looking for, or a specific city or town, you can explore the specific partnership we have there as well.
Monica had asked a similar question, so I guess Monica will have to look up if study abroad opportunities are in Africa and Jamaica. Well, she didn't say Jamaica, Africa and the Caribbean. Okay.
Yeah. We have many partnerships. Again, depending on the area of Africa you'd like to go to, we likely have some of our existing programs set up. We also have a really receptive office that because of our partnerships with the UNC system, let's say if NC State or Chapel Hill or Asheville have a program set up in, let's say, an area of Africa that we previously have not gone to, we likely can work with that university and have you go on one of their featured programs and then bring that credit back to UNCW as well. We have done those partnerships in the past. So that's a great question for our study abroad office. And if you are interested in exploring that, like I say, feel free to contact me and I can send the appropriate resources your way as well.
Okay, thank you. Natalia is asking, do you initially apply to a specific major?
Great question. So actually at UNCW, you do not apply to a specific major. Our application process is what we call major blind, meaning that regardless of what you put on your application, that does not play an influence into your application review. So I'll take an example. Our nursing program is probably one of our most competitive programs on our campus, but when a prospective nursing major student applies at the end of their high school career, they are not reviewed any differently than a student who wants to go into business. All right. That process will take place at the end of your freshman year on campus. Most students will declare their formal major at the end of their freshman year. And that's when you'd be going through either a competitive or a non-competitive review process, depending on the program that you select into. So regardless of your interest, you do not declare a major. You're more than welcome to list an interested major on your application. We'll actually send some of your information to that department and they'll send you updates if you're interested in that program. But most of that you'll kind of explore and find your specific program throughout your freshman year once you're on campus at UNCW.
And Paul, you made a reference earlier that you attended UNCW.
Yep.
What was your most challenging experience at UNCW while you were a student? And how did the university or university's resources support you in navigating this particular challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me think back. I'm getting a little old, so I have to think back here a second. I think probably a challenge that I remember being a little bit worried about coming in is my freshman year and adjusting to, on-campus living, right? And especially for myself as an out-of-state student, I was coming down to North Carolina and coming down to Wilmington where I knew absolutely nobody. And I didn't have, any friends or any family in the area. And I had felt confident about myself in high school with the interest that I had. I had been really involved in music and I had done things with that, but I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to continue those interests in a new area. I was thinking, well, what if they don't have what I'm interested in at UNCW? What the UNCW did that was so wonderful. I talked a little bit about that involvement carnival. I mean, those activities that we have those first couple of weeks are so spectacular. I remember walking through that involvement carnival and finding 10 to 15 clubs. I was like, wow, this sounds so interesting. I joined Scuba Club. I became a tour guide in our admissions office. I joined, our Spanish club. It was amazing. I was able to find all these things that I was interested in and had participated in high school, and it was seamless to transition that over into our college experience. UNCW, as part of your freshman experience, you'll be taking what we call a uni class, and many universities across the country offer a uni class. And the uni class is not necessarily as academic focused as some of your other classes, but it's more about making sure that your transition into a college atmosphere is as good as possible. And so they'll tell you about resources at the library, or places to go off campus if you want this type of food. They really get you, like I say, situated in your new area and make sure that you know the resources that you have access to. You may not end up using all those resources, but they want to make sure that if you need tutoring, we have free tutoring on our campus. Or if you want to speak to someone in our health center, you can go to this health center, and these are the hours. So you really get to learn all the ins and outs of the university. And I remember having that information, while at first might feel like a little bit boring and not necessary, knowing it and having that in the back of my mind throughout the 4 years was very reassuring as a student going through there and being in a new area. And I remember really being appreciative of what UNCW offered that freshman year.
Nice. And I have another question here. Our first year students, and this question is from Mario, are first year students allowed to have cars on campus?
Great question. Yes, first year students can have cars on campus. I would say that while you can have a car, and I would say that majority of students do have cars, it is not necessary. I'll use myself as an example again. Even coming all the way from Maryland, I did not have a car my first 2 years on campus. And it was very easy to get around. We have a public transportation system that can get you to grocery stores, can get you to off-campus apartments, as I mentioned. We also have, you'll be living in a residence hall with plenty of other friends. The possibility of them having a car is likely. And so if you're looking for, a fun ride to the beach or anything like that, there's always, groups of people going out, and you'll make a lot of friends that way as well. The way the parking system works, if you are interested, you'll buy a parking permit for a specific lot at UNCW. That lot is almost always right next to your residence hall. So we are not a big enough campus where you park in one area and then have to walk across to your residence hall. Nearly all of our students have residential lots with their parking, and so they'll be parking directly adjacent to the residence hall, and you'll just pay for that yearly pass.
Okay, that's all the questions for now. I'm going to give about 30 seconds to students to ask their questions. But in the meanwhile, I'll just remind students or participants generally who are in this session that you should fill out our survey immediately after this. The survey link is bit.ly/GPC workshop, and just give us your feedback, please. Also, please feel free to join us at 2 p.m. We have University of Tennessee today after UNCW. We thank you all for joining. We have Natalia, sorry for so many questions, but can you, Natalia, it's not too many questions. Please,
yep, no worries.
As many questions as you want. So thanks for asking the many questions, Natalia. So can you speak a bit about diversity on campus?
Yeah, sure. So we have a number of wonderful resources on our campus that students have access to. If you're interested in general statistics, we have all of that on our website. UNCW is a predominantly white university. Currently, our overall diversity statistic is about 18–19% of those when it comes to of diverse origin. With our resource centers, our global initiative on our campus is that we want that number to increase, and we think it should be increasing. We have wonderful representatives on our campus that are involved with some of our major resource centers. We have 3 major resource centers. Our Centro Hispano is one, which deals foundationally with many of our students coming from a Latinx background. We also have our Upperman African American Cultural Center, and then our LGBTQIA office. Now, those three are kind of our foundational focal points for our diversity initiative, and they work with a number of our different offices on our campus. What I think is truly spectacular about those offices is that they do a wonderful amount of programming for students on our campus that are not exclusive. And so any student, regardless of your background, regardless of, whether it's a specific religion that you identify with or ethnicity, whatever it may be, you are welcome to join these campuses and these programs and learn. And I think that's a really big element, that these are not programs that are exclusive in any sense, but ones that are there to educate and inform students about differences and about cultural, the cultural differences between, two different people. I think that we are working very hard to increase the connectivity of everyone on our campus. And we also, of course, have, financial support and other resources that are available for specific students as well. So, really, as the best, I hate to refer you to the website again, but that is where you can find the best resources on what some of our programming is doing. My favorite example, I was actually a Spanish minor at UNCW. I do not come from a Latinx background, but I am in love with that culture. I had my sister who lived in Spain for several months, and I think that UNCW does an excellent job at, teaching and educating people that don't come from a Latinx background like myself on elements of that culture. Centro Hispano, as I mentioned, was one of our wonderful foundational Latinx organizations, and they do simple things like, salsa dancing on our campus, or they'll do guest speakers from different parts, across the state, mentoring for students of coming from, diverse backgrounds coming to campus. And so they do a ton of comprehensive and immersion for all students, both on our campus who are identifying with those populations, on our campus that are not, and students that are not even part of our UNCW community yet. So it's a collective and a comprehensive effort, like I mentioned. We are nowhere near where we want to be, but I think we're taking the steps in the right direction. And we hope that with the help of future generations as well, that we can continue to improve that moving forward.
Thank you so very much, Paul. Do you have any final comments before we close off?
I don't think so. I appreciate, again, everyone joining today. I know, again, maybe under traditional circumstances, this is not the ideal format of visiting a college, but I hope this gives you a screenshot and a snapshot of what it means to be a Seahawk. Again, I encourage you to contact me. I can, again, share my information, and Dwayne and Jackie have my information as well. If you do have questions after today and you would like to connect with someone in our office, our website is up to date. We are posting tons of virtual resources. I'm interviewing students almost every other day, different students on our campus that are involved with all elements of the Seahawk community. So please go to our website, check out our virtual resources, and then if you do have any other questions, you're welcome to contact me.
Thank you so very much, Paul, and thank you so very much to all our participants. Again, we encourage you to please fill out our survey because we just want to assess how effective this is. And so you filling out the survey will help to guide us in quality control. We also thank you so very much for your time, Paul, and we'll continue to maintain our relationship with you. And we hope after all of this COVID-19, you'll be able to visit us at the Emily K Center.
Definitely.
So thank you, Paul. And
of course.
Thank you all to all our participants. Please have a great day, be safe, and feel free to join us at 2 p.m. for University of Tennessee.
Thank you all.